sharing today some work from my ongoing research that examines opportunities and challenges of creating more gender-equitable urban landscapes on the sites that are transitioning through grassroots actions from being regarded as problematic to being regarded as valuable. The empirical focus here will be on Glasgow. There is a long-standing and widely accepted belief that public space is a cornerstone of our society and that it's an important arena where civic, group, and individual identities are formed. Green public space or urban landscapes have been also linked to better health outcomes, including mental health. At the same time, it is widely acknowledged that women have had limited role in creation of public spaces and urban landscapes. They were completely absent from urban planning, landscape architecture, urban design, and architecture professions when modern cities were shaped. They were also absent from decision-making roles. In addition, public spaces, as we recognize them now as urban spatial topologies, were formed when women's participation in the public realm was very limited. And those women that were in the public realm, like working class and poor women, had no political power, and therefore their needs were disregarded. So our public spaces and urban landscapes were created by middle to upper class men who did not understand what people different from them might need from the public space. And while our society has progressed regarding gender and social equity, public spaces, including parks, have largely remained the same. Many studies have shown that women do not benefit from public space and urban landscapes as much as men. These spaces do not provide amenities for different needs of women at different stages of their lives. Women are rarely recognized and memorialized in public spaces. Also, public spaces and especially urban landscapes might be avoided due to safety concerns. I also want to mention that there is no single all-encompassing definition of women's identity and experience in urban landscapes. In fact, there is a long-standing argument that on the level of personal experience, gender has limited explanatory potential. It is only one structuring dimension of one's identity that intersects with other dimensions and experiences. However, in understanding the social structure of groups, gender is helpful because prejudices are formed and policies are made at the group level. My research does not address all intersectional identities of women, but only those women who had relationships with the sites that I studied. So in my relatively small study, it is clear that different women are differently involved with different sites, but still some parallels can be drawn. There is reemergence of interest in relationships between gender and urban space, especially regarding women's representation and experiences. In addition to academic research, organizations at different levels have also shown interest. For example, the World Bank, the EU, the City of Barcelona, and the London Legacy Development Corporation all have recent reports addressing gender equity in the city. These reports raise awareness of gender-based inequalities, including at the local level, and examine how cities could take positive actions, including what can be done in the planning and design of public spaces, including urban landscapes. However, these reports do not directly challenge how gender operates in the city. Instead, they evaluate existing policy, gather data that will maybe alter the existing policy, and possibly create specific policy to benefit women and gender diverse people. One of the common recommendations in these reports is that we need to have a better understanding of women's lived experiences in different public spaces. Personal safety is often mentioned, but the more typical arguments we find in academic literature about the importance of public space, such as political representation and participation, self-actualization, and even health and well-being, have been less considered in relation to women. An argument for focusing on safety is that it is impossible to achieve and enjoy anything else in the public space if you do not feel safe. On the other hand, a risk of focusing on women through a lens of safety is also about reacting about women's place in public space from the assumed position of women's fear and weakness, which may lead to certain kinds of responsibility and recommendations. In 2022, the Glasgow City Council passed a motion to adopt feminist approach to city planning and design. The feminist city framework is expected to be finalized in the next couple of years. I am not associated with this initiative, and the focus of my research is not on the Glasgow Feminist City, but I am bringing it up here to show that women's grassroots practices in Glasgow are happening in a socio-politically active and sometimes even charged environment. But where exactly these changes will be implemented? Places like this intersection has a lot of problems and would benefit from feminist design interventions to make it more accessible and safer for pedestrians across different age, bodily abilities, and gender. But changing places like this is also incredibly difficult, and if any changes are implemented, they would be small and not paradigm shifting. On the other hand, Glasgow has a large amount of derelict and vacant land because of its past industrial uses, historic environmental pollution, and widespread socio-economic deprivation. It is estimated that 60% of Glaswegians live 500 meters from vacant and derelict land. The path for reimagining these sites has often involved grassroots initiatives and community engagement in which women participate in large numbers. These sites are usually found in populated areas, but have been seen as having no value for the communities already struggling with multi-generational deprivation. In academic literature, it's kind of a little bit different story because there has been a long-standing argument among researchers that looking at these kinds of sites would better be suited to look through the lens of new possibilities rather than as problems to be fixed through conventional planning and design practices that have proven not to work as well for everyone. And in the context of my research and this presentation, that those kinds of practices do not work for women, at least not always, or maybe not most of the times in some instances. So these sites, these ambiguous sites, are not blank slates, but they are spaces in which new ideas could be tested. So in my research, I looked at 9 sites in Glasgow that have been transitioning or have transitioned already through grassroots actions from being considered marginal and problematic to valuable. I was interested to see if these actions have created a more gender-equitable public realm. While these sites have in common women's leadership and participation in grassroots actions, the sites are in other ways very different from each other. Some are privately owned but leased to community groups for a limited time. Some are owned by the Glasgow City Council but managed by the local communities. And some were fully transferred to community ownership through community land buyouts. Some of these sites serve meanwhile uses, some are more used as traditional parks and recreation spaces, and some are considered nature and woodland reserves. Their sizes also vary and are found in different areas of Glasgow. In addition to conducting site observations, I completed formal and informal interviews with those who have been involved in or have a knowledge of grassroots activities. Here are 2 sites that I'm going to discuss in a couple of next 2 slides, in which women have participated in different ways, which provided them different outcomes for them. So Site A is a designated park that is surrounded by low-income housing with some designed features that encourage use, but most of the site is managed as a nature and woodland reserve. The site is owned by the City Council, but the local group is managing its maintenance and programming. Women participate in those activities as volunteers, taking care of the park while also learning about nature conservation. Through this volunteering work, some women obtained a woodland management certificate, which opened new career options. Unfortunately, there was at least one murder on the site with a woman's body found in the pond, which is also the main feature of the site. Nevertheless, most visitors, including women, visit the pond area but avoid woodlands area. When asked about that, women that I talked to said that they are avoiding woods because of safety or because there's nothing to do there. My observations also confirm that woodland areas are less visited. Volunteering on the site through structured and predetermined activities is a way for women to be in the park they like, but are perhaps uncomfortable to use it on their own. Site B is a large former estate on the outskirts of Glasgow, surrounded by low-income neighborhoods and working-class neighborhoods and business park. The estate was abandoned many years ago and was seen as a problem for the local community, although not to the same degree for everyone. Girls were told not to go there, while the boys were allowed to go there and explore. When the site came up for sale for commercial development years ago, a small number of families spearheaded the effort for the community to obtain the site, which was eventually successful. Women and daughters, now grown women, from these families became involved in community leadership and community reclamation of the site. They have completely changed how they feel in and about the site, not only through their direct experience, but also through making opportunities for other women to connect to the site. So we can see from this case that women's experiences were conditioned by views of others about where women and girls belong. Women and girls were discouraged from using the site, while boys and men regularly used those sites for play, walking, and other activities. So the current experience women have on these sites is shaped by the specific conditions of the sites themselves. Therefore, it is also necessary to understand those specific circumstances under which women are involved in those sites and the properties of those sites. The kind of activities women are involved in have a different scales of influence, meaning what their actions can change on the site, and then how that changes women's personal embodied experiences. Volunteering on the site through structured and predetermined activities is rewarding, but it is also completing a task. Being able to envision what an urban landscape can be for you and for others creates a sense of belonging and is more empowering. To examine the place-based capacities of urban landscapes in transition to contribute to a more gender-equitable public realm, it is priority to make visible what embodied experiences need to be changed. This is clear on the sites where women are actively involved in envisioning, changing, and maintaining urban landscape, because they have a more personal and immediate connection to the site to understand what is changing for them and what changes can be implemented for others.